July 30th, 1944, near Saint-Lô, Normandy. The road ahead is dust and flame. Fields that once held wheat now burn black, and the smell of diesel hangs low in the morning air. A Sherman M4A1, hull number 3096283, grinds forward through the haze. On the turret, painted in white script, two words curve under a faint smear of soot. In the mood. Inside, 5 men breathe the same air, oil, sweat, cordite. Commander Staff Sergeant Lafayette G. 25 years old, leans out of the cupola with binoculars pressed to his face. His goggles are cracked. His voice is calm and clipped. Gun up. Gunner Kenneth Root answers, up. Driver Wilbert Richards shifts gears. The tank lurches forward, metal clanking against metal. At 08:22 hours, they spot movement, the silhouette of a Panzer IV, half hidden behind a stone wall. Distance, 600 yards. Poole squints, calculates without words. Target, right 2 degrees, range 600. The gunner exhales. The 75mm fires. A flash, recoil, dust. Through the smoke, the German tank ignites, ammunition cooking off in bursts that light the hedgerow orange. Poole doesn't watch it burn. Next roadblock, he says into the intercom. We're not done yet. The column moves again, Shermans, half-tracks and infantry weaving between ditches. Above, P-47s trace contrails across the pale sky. The 3rd Armoured Division, Spearhead, is pushing through the last line south of Saint-Lô. Poole's platoon leads the way. He always volunteers to be first. They advance 20 yards at a time, each stop measured, each shot deliberate. For Poole, tank combat isn't chaos. It's timing. Seconds matter. Angles matter. He never stays still long enough to be aimed at. In his head, there's a rhythm, gear shift, sight alignment, fire, move, reload, move again. He calls it dancing. His crew calls it luck. They fought together since Cherbourg. Root, Richards, loader Paul King, assistant driver John Hay. 4 men who barely talk outside the tank but breathe as one inside it. Each movement anticipates the next. When Poole leans right, Root already adjusts traverse. When he raises a hand, Richards shifts throttle before the order comes. It's not training. It's survival turned instinct. By midday, the tank's hull is streaked black with soot. The crew has been in constant action for 5 hours. 12 enemy vehicles destroyed, 2 artillery positions silenced, 1 machine gun nest flattened beneath the tracks. Infantry follow in the smoke trail. Some wave as they pass, others just stare at the tank's name, in the mood, as if it carries its own momentum. A shell lands short on their left. Earth sprays across the hull. Richard steadies the tank, voice tight. That one was close. Poole doesn't reply. He lifts his binoculars again. Panzer, 12 o'clock, 400. Loaded. Fire. The shell hits clean through the turret ring. The explosion rocks the ground. Root mutters something under his breath that no one catches. They keep rolling until the gun barrel glows faintly red. Fuel gauge reads 1/4. Poole orders halt under a shattered barn. The crew eats from ration tins, engine idling. Outside, a single P-47 circles low, banking toward the front. In the distance, steady thunder. That's not weather. That's Saint-Lô falling. He writes the day's tally in a small notebook. 12 tanks, 3 anti-tank guns, 5 trucks. He underlines the date twice. A runner from battalion arrives breathless. Colonel Hogan says, "Keep pushing. We're breaking through to Avranches." Poole nods once, closes the notebook and taps the turret wall. "Mount up." The Sherman roars alive again, clattering onto the road. Mud sprays from the tracks. The gunner loads another shell. As they crest the next ridge, they pass a burnt German half-track. The driver slumped over the wheel looks strangely intact, as if frozen mid-turn. The loader says nothing. Poole glances once, then lowers the periscope. The column moves faster now. Radio static hums in the headset, fragments of reports, call signs, coordinates. At 16:10, they cross the outskirts of Saint-Lô. Buildings flattened, telephone poles torn like matchsticks. A lone church bell rings somewhere without pattern. Poole's tank stops beside the rubble. The barrel points forward, faint heat rippling from the steel. The commander looks out across the ruins, then back at his crew. 3 days, he says quietly, and we'll see Paris. He doesn't know he has 51 days left to fight, 81 until his war ends. The engine revs once more, and in the mood disappears into the dust, heading east. August 2nd, 1944. South of Avranches, France. The fields are torn open by tank treads. The summer air smells of diesel, grass, and death. The 3rd Armoured Division, nicknamed Spearhead, advances east through the bocage. In the lead, a platoon of 5 Shermans commanded by Staff Sergeant Lafayette G. At 0540, the engines start in unison. The sound is a vibration more than a roar. 5 radial engines beating through the fog, echoing off stone walls. Poole's tank, in the mood, moves first. The white stars on its hull are half covered in dust and oil. Inside the cramped turret, the crew is silent. No one speaks unless there's a reason. Poole checks his wristwatch, then looks through the commander's periscope. "Driver, move out! Follow the hedgerow, keep it tight." Richards, the driver, pushes the throttle. The Sherman jolts forward, gears clanking, engine whining. Root, the gunner, already has a round chambered. Loader Paul King rests his arm on the breech, waiting. They've done this 100 times. Every movement inside the tank has a rhythm. Richards counts seconds between shifts. Root breathes out before every shot. King moves with the sound of Poole's voice. It's routine, built from repetition. Not courage, but precision. They cross into open ground at 0615. A German half-track appears at 800 yards. "Range 8, Poole says. "On the way." The gun recoils. Smoke fills the turret. Brass clangs against the floor. The half-track flips sideways, its fuel tank igniting in a flash that reflects off Poole's goggles. He doesn't celebrate. He doesn't look away. "Keep moving." The radio crackles with reports. Columns stalled by anti-tank guns, infantry pinned. The division's doctrine is clear. Mobility over armour, speed over safety. The M4 Sherman weighs 30 tons, with steel only 2 inches thick on its sides. Against a Panther, it's suicide to trade fire. But Poole doesn't trade. He moves. His tactic is simple and lethal. Never stop. Never let the enemy aim twice. He drives into their line, takes their shot, and lets his wingmen flank. At 0940, his platoon encounters a battery of PaK-40s camouflaged in tree lines. Poole doesn't hesitate. "Driver, fast! Straight through!" The Sherman surges forward at full throttle. Roots and branches whip across the hull. 2 rounds whistle past. The 3rd grazes the rear fender, spraying molten metal. Root fires once. The German gun disappears in a fireball. A 2nd gun tries to pivot. King reloads before Poole even gives the order. "Up! Fire!" Silence. Then another blast. When it's over, the air smells of cordite and burned rubber. Poole looks down at his watch again. 27 minutes since contact. 3 enemy positions destroyed. He logs the kills later that night in his pocketbook. Small block letters, perfect handwriting. He doesn't add adjectives, only numbers. It's not pride, it's inventory. The crew camps near hedgerow, engines cooling under the night air. Richards wipes oil from his hands. "You ever think we are too far ahead?" Poole doesn't look up. "If we are still breathing, we're not ahead enough." King chuckles once, quietly. That should be painted on the tank. For a moment, there's laughter. Short, tired, human. They eat from ration tins in silence, the sound of artillery rolling faintly in the distance. Overhead, the faint hum of C-47 transports fades west toward England. Poole lies back against the hull, staring at the stars through drifting smoke. He knows his crew's rhythm better than his own pulse. Roots slow breathing, Richards shifting his boots before sleep, King humming barely audible jazz. He thinks of Glenn Miller's In the Mood, the song that gave his tank its name. He imagines hearing it again when this is over. The next morning, before dawn, he'll give the same order he gives every day. Mount up. And the machine, man and metal, will move again. August 10th, 1944. The sun rises red over northern France, filtering through smoke that never clears. The Spearhead division is on the move again. Steel, fuel, and exhaustion stretching from horizon to horizon. At the head of the convoy rolls In the Mood, its armour scarred, paint worn pale by dust. The men inside no longer feel the tremors. The shaking is constant now, part of their bodies. Lafayette Poole leans half out of the cupola, goggles down, eyes fixed on the road ahead. His uniform is sun-faded, one sleeve torn at the elbow. Every few minutes he lifts his binoculars, scanning the tree lines. The fields are filled with wrecks, twisted panzers, burned trucks, carcasses of horses. The smell of hot oil and decay mixes with the sweetness of grass. "Keep it at 30, he says into the intercom. Richards grunts acknowledgement. The driver's hands are blistered from the levers, his eyes bloodshot from engine smoke. Root sits behind the gun sight, silent, finger resting against the trigger guard. King checks the shells one by one, armor-piercing, high explosive, smoke. He counts them aloud. The loader's voice is steady but hoarse. They've been fighting without pause since Avranches, 50 miles in 4 days. Every village is a fight, every hedgerow another ambush. The men don't talk about rest, they only talk about fuel. At 09:14, they approach the outskirts of Le Mans. A convoy of German half-tracks tries to escape east. Poole signals by radio. No waiting for permission, no formation. He calls it cutting the artery. The Sherman swings left off the road, crushing fences and ditches. Richards accelerates hard, the tank leaping forward, engines screaming. Root fires before the tank stops moving. The first half-track explodes in a blossom of fire. A second swerves into a ditch. The rest scatter. Poole shouts coordinates over the radio to the platoon behind him, but they're already gone, chasing through smoke. He doesn't wait for confirmation. His crew works in silence. Reload, fire, reload. The rhythm faster than thought. Every burst echoes across the valley like thunder rolling over metal. By midday, the air itself smells scorched. The column halts on the edge of the city. Infantry fan out along the walls. Artillery shells fall somewhere beyond the river. The battle lasts 4 hours. When it's over, the road to Paris lies open. Poole's tank alone has destroyed 8 vehicles and 2 guns. His hands shake when he removes his goggles. He pretends not to notice. That night, they bivouac near a barn on the eastern road. The men eat from tin cans, sitting on the hull. Someone finds an old French radio in the ruins. It still works. The voice of Glenn Miller comes through the static, thin but recognizable. In the mood. The men laugh quietly. Richards taps his boots to the beat. For a minute, the war feels far away. Poole watches the flames from a wreck burning across the field. 3 more days, he says. We'll see Paris. Root doesn't answer. He's cleaning the gun again, cloth moving slow, mechanical. At dawn, the march continues. The tank's name is now known across the division. Soldiers wave when they pass, shouting, "There goes In the Mood!" Poole only nods once from the hatch. Fame doesn't sit well in a war like this. Every name that becomes known is one more that doesn't last long. On August 17th, they cross the Seine under artillery fire. Bridgeheads burning, smoke thick enough to taste. Poole's platoon covers the engineers, firing at muzzle flashes across the river. One shell lands close enough to rock the tank on its suspension. King yells through the headset, "We're hit!" "Negative," Poole answers. "Keep firing." When the bridge holds, the column rolls across. France opens before them, torn and silent. Villagers wave flags from windows. Children run beside the tanks. Poole doesn't slow down. He looks at their faces and sees what he's trying not to think about, relief mixed with disbelief. That evening, under a violet sky, they park by the roadside. The tank's barrel points east, blackened and still hot. Poole takes his notebook and adds another line. Le Mans to Seine. 32 destroyed, 2 wounded, still moving. He closes the book and sits for a moment on the hull, watching the last light fade behind smoke. The sound of engines carries faintly from the distance, another column catching up. Tomorrow they'll drive again. For now, He allows himself one small truth. They're winning. But he knows what that really means. It only means there's still fuel left. August 20th, 1944. The roads east of Chartres are lined with wrecks. French civilians move through the ruins carrying buckets of water for the wounded. The sound of engines never stops. American armour moving toward Paris, a rolling tide of steel and smoke. At the head of the advance, In the Mood drives through fields that shimmer with heat. Lafayette Poole stands half out of the turret, binoculars pressed against the goggles that have left pale circles on his face. His right hand rests on the rim of the hatch, his knuckles are black with soot. He doesn't smile, doesn't speak much anymore. Every mile has become arithmetic. How much fuel, how many shells, how many men left. "Contact ahead," Root says over the intercom. "Hold steady," Poole answers. His tone never changes. Same cadence whether they're firing or eating breakfast. The column halts. Across a shallow ridge, 3 panzers dig in among apple trees. Distance 700 yards. The air tastes of metal. Poole lifts his headset. "Driver, slow advance, we draw their eyes." Richards obeys, moving them into open ground. It's a manoeuvre no manual would approve. The lead tank exposed, moving straight into the enemy's sights. But this is how Poole fights. He makes himself bait, trusting his crew's timing more than armour. A German shell whistles past, exploding behind them. Another hits closer, shaking the hull. Root waits for Poole's cue. "Now!" The gun fires, a flash. The first Panther erupts in a column of smoke. King reloads instantly. The casing clatters against the floor. "Next gun, left 10. Another round, another impact. The second tank burns. The third reverses, retreating into the orchard. Poole raises the periscope, tracks it through branches, and gives one last order. "Fire!" The field falls silent except for the crackling of flames. Poole checks his watch. 8 minutes since contact. Root exhales for the first time in what feels like hours. "That's 91, King mutters. 92, Poole corrects quietly. They don't celebrate. The smoke carries too many memories, too many tanks that didn't return. The days blur. They fight through Etampes, then Mantes. Each battle is shorter, faster. The German line is breaking, but that makes it more dangerous. Ambushes, mines, lone gunners in ruins. The 3rd Armoured Division moves 30 miles a day, pushing ahead of supply. The tank crews run on coffee, cigarettes, and the mechanical certainty that stopping means dying. Poole's method has become legend. Other platoons copy it. Charge, draw fire, let the flanks finish. It violates every tactical manual, but it keeps working. Commanders don't question success. They call him the tank ace of America. His men call him War Daddy. The nickname spreads through the ranks faster than he can stop it. When night falls, he writes by lantern on the inside wall of the tank, using a piece of chalk. 94 tanks, 258 vehicles, 30 guns. The crew jokes that one day he'll run out of space. He never laughs. On August 24th, they reach the western outskirts of Paris. The skyline glows faintly through smoke. Columns of refugees walk the same road as the tanks. Poole leans from the hatch, handing out chocolate bars and cigarettes to children who stare at the massive machine rolling past. His face stays unreadable. "Tomorrow," Root says, "we drive through the city." Poole nods once. "If we make it." The night before the liberation, the men sleep inside the tank, too tired to unroll their gear. The rain starts before dawn, soft at first, then steady. Water runs down the turret, over the painted words, "In the Mood." At 06 o'clock the order comes down, advance to the Seine bridges. The column rolls forward, treads grinding against wet stone. From the cupola, Poole watches the skyline come closer. Rooftops, church spires, the faint ring of bells over gunfire. He knows what waits beyond the city. More fields, more miles, more names he'll never learn. But for this moment, they are moving forward. The pattern is perfect now. See, strike, survive, repeat. It's not luck anymore, it's precision. And as the first light hits the Seine, In the Mood crosses into Paris. The world is cheering, but inside the tank, 5 men sit in silence, listening only to the hum of the engine that has carried them farther than reason ever should. September 19th, 1944, near Lickertel, Germany. Morning fog rolls low across the valley, blurring the shapes of tanks and hedgerows into one long shadow. The sound of engines comes faint at first, then builds into a dull thunder. The last push of the 3rd Armoured Division as it crosses the border. Every vehicle smells of hot oil and rain-soaked steel. Inside In the Mood, the air is thick and still. The crew hasn't spoken in an hour. Their eyes are bloodshot from smoke, ears numb from days of firing. Poole checks the map on his knee. One more village, one more bridge, then rest. He doesn't believe the word anymore, but he says it anyway. Let's finish it. Richards nods from the driver's seat. The Sherman lurches forward onto an open road lined with apple trees stripped bare by artillery. To the west, another column burns. The radio spits fragments of code and silence. At 10:17, the first shot comes. A shell whistles past the right side of the turret and detonates in the ditch. "Panther! 11 o'clock!" Root yells. Poole turns his periscope, a black silhouette, low and still, 800 yards away. "Hold steady," he says. His voice doesn't rise. Root fires first. The recoil shudders through their bodies, casing clattering on the floor. The round glances off the German's front plate. No effect. "Back it up. Fast." Richards reverses. The second German shell lands short, showering dirt over the tank. The third hits. The right track snaps. The world inside the Sherman lurches sideways. Smoke floods the turret. Poole coughs, grabs the intercom. "Bail out! Now!" King reaches for the hatch. Another shell strikes. This time it finds the fuel tank. The explosion folds the world in half. For a second, Poole sees nothing but light, white, soundless, absolute. Then cold. The ground hits him hard. The air tastes of earth and fire. He hears nothing but ringing. Somewhere, someone is screaming, but it fades as quickly as it begins. He drags himself away from the wreck, leg twisted, torn open below the knee. The tank is burning, shells cooking off one by one. Root and King are gone. Richards lies motionless beside the tread. Poole pulls himself forward with his elbows, leaving a black trail through the mud. Medics find him 30 minutes later. They carry him past what's left of In the Mood, a skeleton of metal, turret split open like a jaw. He looks once, nothing in his face. "Tell the boys," he starts, voice barely audible. "Keep moving." Then he closes his eyes. The war moves on without him. The 3rd Armoured presses deeper into Germany. Someone paints the name In the Mood 2 on a new Sherman the next week, then 3 a month later. None of them last long. In an army hospital in England, Poole wakes to the smell of disinfectant and the sound of rain against glass. His right leg is gone. A doctor says words that dissolve into background noise. Surgery, infection, amputation. He stares at the ceiling. 94 tanks destroyed, 258 vehicles, 81 days. All erased in one shell. Outside, the guns of Europe still thunder. Inside, a man who moved faster than war can no longer move at all. He turns his head to the window and says, not to anyone in particular, "Guess she ran out of luck." The nurse doesn't understand the words or that he means the tank. Somewhere across the channel, In the Mood still burns quietly under the German rain. October 1944, Salisbury Army Hospital, England. Rain hammers against a glass ceiling, steady and cold. The ward smells of ether and rust. Rows of men lie silent, each separated by a thin curtain and a metal tray. Somewhere down the hall, a radio plays Glenn Miller's Moonlight Serenade, distant, warped by static. Lafayette Poole lies awake, staring at the ceiling. His right leg ends above the knee, wrapped in clean white gauze. He hasn't spoken in 2 days. Nurses whisper that he's the one they called War Daddy, the tank ace. 94 confirmed kills in 81 days. They expect pride. They find nothing. When the surgeon visits, Poole asks a single question. "When can I go back?" The answer is gentle, almost apologetic. "You can't, Sergeant." He nods once, looks away, and doesn't speak again for the rest of the week. The war rolls forward without him. Paris is free. The Ardennes burns. Across the channel, new names rise and fall as fast as they appear. In the newspapers, his face is printed beside the number 258, the total enemy vehicles destroyed by his platoon. The headline reads, "The American Rommel." He doesn't recognize the man in the photograph. At night he dreams of engine noise, not music, not memory, but the rhythm of the tank's heart, ignition, gears, recoil. He wakes up expecting the smell of oil, but it's gone. All that's left is antiseptic and silence. In December, he boards a hospital ship bound for New York. The sea is grey and endless. Soldiers crowd the deck, leaning on crutches, staring east. Poole stands with them, balanced on one leg, coat flapping in the wind. A nurse offers him a cigarette. He declines. Never smoked in the tank, he says. Bad luck. Texas, 1946. The war is over. He returns to his hometown of San Antonio and tries to live quietly. He marries Evelyn, works at a steel mill, teaches Sunday school. Neighbours call him the Tank Man, but he never talks about it. When asked about the medals, he says only, "They belong to all of us." The army writes once, asking if he would help with training new recruits. He ignores it at first, then changes his mind. In 1948, he re-enlists, this time as an instructor. He learns to drive again, his prosthetic leg working the pedals of an M26 Pershing. The younger men stare at him like a legend. He tells them not to. "I wasn't braver than anyone," he says during one lecture. "I just had better aim." He stays in uniform through Korea, teaching gunnery and tactics. His classroom smells of grease and chalk. He starts each session the same way. Rule 1, see first. Rule 2, shoot first. Rule 3, go home. It's the only sermon he ever repeats. In 1960, he retires quietly, buying a small house near Fort Sam Houston. He keeps one photograph on the wall, not of himself, but of In the Mood and its crew standing beside it, faces half lit by the low Normandy sun. He never replaces it, never moves it. Lafayette G. Poole died in 1991, aged 73. No ceremonies, no speeches. The army sent a letter, in recognition of valour and service. His son placed a model Sherman on the casket, green paint, white star, the words "In the Mood" hand-lettered on the turret. Today his record still stands. No American tanker has ever surpassed it. 94 tanks, 81 days, 1 man. The last entry in his old notebook reads, "Stopped on the road, out of fuel, still moving." And that's how the legend ends. Not in victory, not in defeat, but in motion. Because some soldiers never really stop. They just run out of sky to drive through.